Good morning, my friends. Today, it's a beautiful sunny day. Don't believe there's a cloud in the sky, but there's still like a slight little haze over there. I'm not sure if that's clouds or smog or whatnot, but overall it looks pretty sunny. Last night we had some thunder coming in, which was, thunder is always kind of fun. Had some lightning, and so it's nice to have sort of just like in the background rumbling. It's a nice little effect, I guess you would call it. So I have some things on my list I'm crossing off, and today I'm going to be talking about fasting and what fasting is. If you're not aware of it, although most people should, it's the concept of not eating, basically. You're not eating for a duration of time for what effects you want, depending if you want a spiritual experience, you're doing it for health reasons, you're doing it just to prove how tough you are, or you're just in the forest, in the wilderness, or wherever, starving to death. You're fasting. Everyone fasts. If you go to sleep at night, you wake up and you'll have breakfast. And you're breaking the fast. That's the root of that word for those who may not know it. And I try to fast every once in a while. I believe that there are some crucial health benefits that you can get from it. One of the main things is that you're literally giving your digestive system a rest. You're giving it some time to sort of do its stuff. You're just drinking water. You're letting water and only water sort of flush out the system. You can take some other supplements if you want to that can also help. I know I'm doing this liver detox thing. I'm not sure if it's working or not, but I got it at a farmer's market and I was curious, so I thought, hey, why not try it out? Just pour a little dropper into my cup of hot water now. I'm not drinking tea anymore. This is just hot water, just to give in to the habit of drinking something hot every morning, which I'm used to, sort of tricking my brain, so to speak, to make me believe that I'm having a caffeinated beverage when I'm actually not. So fasting is generally something that I try to do, not often, but every so often I'll do it, and do it for generally around a day or so, 24 25 hours. And most people don't really do it. They don't know anything about it, especially in the first world. If you live in a third world country, obviously fasting is a lot more common, just because poverty and all that. But if you are in the West and you're used to having 3 meals a day consecutively, I would definitely recommend taking one of those days and just not eating anything and see how you feel at the end of it. The first thing that you do when you first start fasting is that food will ultimately taste a lot better. You have a delayed sense of gratification, and when you first take your bite of anything, it's like you really appreciate the food that comes to you, and you learn to really appreciate it in a divine way, I find. And you'll learn to just appreciate a lot of things in general. You'll feel a lot more satisfied at the end of the day when you eat. When you deprive yourself of food and then eat at the end of the day, you'll feel this sense of gratification. I've never gone longer than one day. I know there's some retreats you can do where people go for like 2-3 days, go for a week. 21 days I've heard as a big one. That's pretty epic for me. I feel like if you're going for that long, it might actually cause a little bit of damage to your digestive system. But I'm not a doctor. I don't know much about it, but I do believe that at least every so often, for the whole day, just not eating anything, just drinking water, is generally the best thing to do. If you're Jewish, you're definitely familiar with the term, or if you're Muslim as well. with the term of fasting. I recently had Yom Kippur it's been not a month ago, I'd say half a month ago, 2 weeks. And that was, an experience that you go through, a very spiritual experience. Not only do you not eat, but you also can't drink anything. You can't consume anything into your body. And that can include brushing your teeth, taking a shower, all that kind of stuff. A lot of people, have their own sort of rules that they like to play around with. Some people like to drink. Some people just, wait until like 3 p.m. to break the fast. The general rule is it's at sunset you stop eating, and then the next sunset after that is when you begin to eat again. Or if you're in a more orthodox setting, it's when the shofar blows. If you don't know what a shofar is, it's basically a giant horn that acts as a brass instrument, basically, and the rabbi blows it and makes a loud noise, and then that's when the fasting ends, and then you can eat whatever you want. And I will say from personal experience, it's a very spiritual, reflective time for me, especially during Yom Kippur. Just any time when I'm fasting, I always try to really focus into myself, because you end up becoming a little bit loopy. You sort of take a step back out of your body, because it's almost like you're in a state of death, so to speak, which some people might think is unhealthy, but being in a state of death is not necessarily a bad thing. Everything must die before it becomes reborn again. So when you're entering that sort of you're very far away from death, obviously you're not going to die from not eating for a day, but you're in a state where you're sort of a little bit out of your body, you're a little bit loopy, you're a little bit sort of out there. And I think that's a very important aspect for when you're thinking about your spirituality. It's a very empowering thing. And I haven't even really talked about the health benefits of fasting. I've talked about how it's resetting your digestive system for the most part, but it's, in a lot of senses, it sort of recalibrates your metabolism, right? It creates more of a hunter metabolism. A hunter would, not really eat that much for a duration of time, and then would go out and hunt, and that would be his meal. If he was a hunter during the day, I shouldn't say he or she, and if they were a hunter during the day, they would, eat probably at night, and that would be their meal for the day, and they'd have like a big meal. They'll have like elk or whatever, and or a squirrel or some sort of rodent or whatnot. But either way, hunting wasn't something that you would do like a grazing. You would snack during the day. That just wouldn't really happen. You would hunt and then eat at the end of the day. Maybe you would have some saved up. Some people like to fish, and they would dry up the fish on like these wooden poles that they would hang up, and they'd let the fish dry, and they'd eat that kind of like beef jerky. It was only until we started farming did we actually develop a sense of, let's actually have this 3 meals a day kind of thing. Let's constantly be eating, which I think doctors are pushing for. They're pushing more for like, in between meal snacking and all that, which is fine if you're trying to develop a more vegetarian, vegan lifestyle, which I think would be good. But most people in the world, unfortunately, eat meat. And if, personally, I do eat meat. I tried a vegetarian diet. It was very, I just felt sick most of the time. I didn't do it properly. It's a very difficult diet to do. You need a lot of nutrients that come from meat, and meat's very important in the diet. I think also just being a man in general, men need certain vitamins in meat, or certain whatever stuff in meat, protein, etc., that men need to feel like men, to pump out that testosterone, to make you feel comfortable in your body. I noticed that a lot more women than men are vegetarian, and it's interesting to see. But if you can do it, either way, you have to listen to what your body is telling you what's best for you. So there's a lot of people who just eat meat, and if you're doing it in a constructive way and you're eating healthy meats. So like if you're eating grass-fed beef or whatever, which is generally the healthiest kind, or chicken or whatnot, although chicken's hard to get because there's a lot of antibiotics in chicken nowadays. So overall, if you're developing a fasting, you're generally trying to live a more carnivorous hunter style diet, which is I'd say fairly healthy depending on who you are. Some people are different though. They have different genetics of depending where they come from. I know my genetics stem mostly from Eastern Europe, or far back enough, Ireland too, on my mother's side. So there's a mixture there. But I believe that, if we're living in these environments where it's a lot colder than the Mediterranean. If you have someone who, let's say, is from African descent or whatnot, they're more used to a vegetative lifestyle. If you're someone from the north, you're more used to a hunter tribe type of mentality where you sort of fast and then eat. You're used to long winters where you didn't really go for food that long, and your body has evolved to adjust to that. So you need to really think about your genetics, where you come from, and if you're trying to think of a good diet for you, generally that's the best place to start, because a lot of people aren't, they think that everyone has a universal diet, but everyone's different because of our genetics of where we come from, literally. So depending on what your environment is or where your ancestry comes from, you should definitely look at that to see what kind of food you should eat and whatnot. I'm not really one to talk about this though. I'm not exactly the healthiest person, unfortunately. Although sometimes I try to be healthy, but it's it's a step-by-step process that I go towards. But I know where I sort of need to go, and fasting is generally one of the easiest things for me to maintain some sort of sense of health, and then eat some healthy food every so often. But everyone has their slip-ups, I guess. So anyway, that's all I have to say, and I hope you have a wonderful day.